Megacast, our live daily TV, radio, and streaming show talking about all things Oakland County and the state of Michigan. I'm your host, Tyler Keefe. Now, of course, we are always live Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. across our network of TV, radio, and web outlets all throughout Oakland County and across the state of Michigan. You can learn more about all of our partnering stations and follow along with all their original programming beyond the Megacast Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. by visiting civiccentertv.com/Megacast. For those of you in those communities that may have not been seeing our show over the last couple of weeks, part of that reason has been that it's been a little bit shaky where our schedule has been and where I have been too. Obviously, if you're tuning in for the first time in a few weeks, this is not our studio at Green Media Center. 2 weeks ago, Friday, I ended up suddenly having to exit our show about 15 minutes early due to hospitalization. I had a medical incident where I lost consciousness. I had maybe even potentially hit my head, and I was in the hospital for a few days, and then, of course, had the next week out of the office to recover from being in the hospital and from those situations. That also has created some new scenarios for me in my own life, including my work life. And so I'm going to be doing the shows from home for the time being. I may occasionally be back in our studio at Green Media Center in West Bloomfield, but for now we're expanding out to Western Oakland County, where I'll be doing the show each and every day from my home here on the west side of Oakland County. All is well, as with our show as well, and we'll be back all throughout our local area on all of our partnering stations, beginning today, as we have been, as they've continued to join us for some of them for a different version of the Splash Live and the Megacast over the last week or so. We appreciate you for tuning in, and glad to have you back and welcome you in to my home as you have welcomed me into yours over the last several years. So let's get into what's making news all across the Oakland County area today. It's been a busy weekend, in fact. What started off as a pretty quiet weekend, it didn't stay that way for very long. Let's begin on Friday. Making news late last week from Lily Altavina at the Detroit Free Press. A federal judge's ruling on Friday in Detroit declared that lawsuits by family members of victims of the November 2021 shooting at Oxford High School against both the school district and employees of the district may continue. The judge, U.S. District Court Judge Mark Goldsmith, stated in his ruling that the family's attorneys were able to properly argue that the two employees, Counselor Sean Hopkins and Dean of Students Nicholas Ejak, as well as the school district, may have known that the 15-year-old shooter at the time was a potential threat to his fellow students and to the staff in the community at Oxford High School. Now, let's make one thing clear with this ruling. The ruling does not imply culpability for either Oxford High School, the Oxford Community School District, or these particular employees. It merely states that attorneys for the victims' families were able to make a compelling argument that the case deserves further deliberation and that their arguments may have plausibility to them and should be looked into further, indicating that the lawsuit should continue to proceed through the process as is and not be halted at this time. Despite the lawsuits against the school district and those two particular employees noted earlier, Judge Goldsmith did dismiss lawsuits against several others in these cases, including former District Superintendent Tim Throne, as well as former Superintendent Kenneth Weaver, and other administrators and teachers originally listed in this lawsuit. Despite the changes, the continuation of this lawsuit as ruled by the U.S. District Court Judge was met with some excitement from attorney Ben Johnson, who was representing the families of the victims in these lawsuits, calling the ruling a, quote, monumental win, and also stating, quote, we are very, very confident that once we have that ability, it will be even more clear than it already is that the entire school shooting could have been avoided because of all the knowledge that they had at the school, and closed quote. Of course, there's additional impacts on this case that came before the ruling last week, Friday. The first a report from Guidepost Solutions, a third-party organization brought in by the Oxford Community School District to investigate security protocols before, during, and after the November 2021 incident at Oxford High School, was released and did show that there were some gaps in the security protocols in the school district at that time, that those have been changed and some of them have been improved, and that there still is room to grow in that regard from within the Oxford School District. May that have an impact on these lawsuits we're yet to see just yet. But those stories, that story of the first Guidepost Solutions review certainly may have an impact on this, as well as further reviews from Guidepost Solutions as they put their full report together. That's expected to be done sometime in the next several months and be reported to the Oxford Community School District Board of Education and be made public as well. Of course, other information that may come in through the case against the then 15-year-old, now 16-year-old shooter in his court case, as well as the court case against both of his parents, James and Jennifer Crumbly, may also have an impact on these lawsuits that are still ongoing. Now, it is also expected that the Oxford Community School District will appeal this ruling from U.S. District Court Judge Mark Goldsmith, and that these lawsuits may still have potential to be thrown out, or further lawsuits may have potential to be thrown out, whether it's against the school officials, against the school district, or both. But at this time, these lawsuits do persist. They will move forward as of now, pending any other ruling otherwise by another higher court in the system. So, plenty of more information from Lily Altavina and the team at the Detroit Free Press on this matter. You can find the full article by clicking through on our local news page on civiccentertv.com. That is our top story today on our local news page. Also making headlines over the weekend, unfortunate situation in Berkeley over the weekend from Maisha Johnson at the Detroit News. The annual Berkeley Days Festival began late last week, but came to a screeching halt on Friday evening after several fights broke out at the what was planned to be 4-day-long festival, with some rumored to have involved guns. Around 7 p.m., local police responded to reports of several fights in the area of the festival. Crowds quickly scattered during these fights after multiple calls were being made about a gun allegedly being pulled at the fights. In a statement, the Berkeley Police Department said shortly after those calls, quote, "The decision was quickly made to close the event for the evening, and officers immediately began to disperse the crowd," and closed quote. While no guns were recovered, police did say that they found several toy guns in the proximity of the location of those fights, but, quote, "no actual firearms," and closed quote, were recovered from the scenes. Police and the planners of Berkeley Days decided to cancel the remaining 2 days of the event following the incident so as to not put themselves in the potential for further incidents happening in Berkeley following the event on Friday night. No word has been made about the status of the other upcoming events in the city, but they expect, quote, "an official announcement for the Scareback Family Carnival in the coming days," and closed quote, per reports out of Berkeley. Now, plenty of different things may have impacted this, whether there was infighting between groups that were there, or people were picking fights with each other and decided to go into Berkeley for some reason or another. That's not entirely clear. I have received some reports that social media may have played an impact in this, that there was some spatting over social media that ultimately may have led to this happening in Berkeley, and may not have even been related to Berkeley or Berkeley Days proper, but just kind of moved over into the proximity of that event, somewhere in the middle of where these groups may or may not have been planning to have some sort of skirmish go down. Unfortunately, we've seen this in other places too, and in different ways, where events like this have an incident that snowballs and rumors spread, or misinformation spreads, or somebody sees something that they think is something more severe than it actually is and calls something out, and that causes panic. Sometimes that information is true, and sometimes that information is necessary to be called out, and other times it can simply do what it did and cause panic. But regardless, social media continuing to be something that's going to be looked at for these events and others. It plays a big role in security for events like this while they're ongoing and beforehand. And of course, guns always are going to be a concern at large gatherings of people. That's part of the reason why when you do plan an event like Berkeley Days, or you plan an event maybe here in the greater West Bloomfield area, or flagship area like the Orchard Lake Fine Arts Show, local law enforcement and public safety organizations like the police and fire and EMS are always going to play a factor in the planning of those events, just in case these sorts of incidents may pop up. But unfortunate news out of Berkeley over the weekend, ending Berkeley Days about halfway through the 4-day-long festival. in a really unfortunate situation there in Berkeley. But luckily, everybody that was on site is safe at this time. We don't have any reports of injuries or, God forbid, deaths from that event, which is the good news in all of this. Unfortunately, a community event came to a screeching halt, but the good news is that nobody was harmed as a result of that. Also making headlines today on our local news page from Ben Orner at MLive. Changes are on the way this summer to Michigan's distracted driving laws. That's as long as Governor Whitmer signs these laws into effect here in the coming days. That is expected to happen. A new law to expand restrictions on electronic device usage like cell phones or tablets or other devices while in your car was passed in the state legislature last week and is expected to be signed into law by Governor Whitmer in the coming days and weeks. Given the majority that passed these laws in both chambers, if signed by the governor soon, the law could expand officially just before the 4th of July holiday. MLive's Ben Orner listed 4 of the key changes to keep mindful of this summer as that law may go into effect very soon. Number 1, you cannot hold your device while driving for the purpose of using it. So you can't be at the wheel getting ready to make a phone call or checking a push notification or sending a text message and glancing back and forth between the road and your phone. That would become illegal in the state of Michigan under these new laws. It's one of the key expansions of the bill, House Bill 4250, which will ban usage, including holding your phones to send or receive calls or texts, watching, recording, or sending videos, as well as reading or posting on social media sites. All things you shouldn't be doing behind the wheel anyway, but, people do it. It happens. It happens every single day. You see some of the crazy ways people are driving on the roads. You gotta think. Sometimes I'm driving around. Well, not much anymore for various reasons. But sometimes I'm in a car driving around as a passenger or as a driver, and I see someone make a really dumb move on the road. I don't really see it. I don't look through the window. I'm too busy, trying not to get in a car accident. But I then think afterward, well, you know what? I really hope that person was just distracted on their phone or something, and that's why they made that boneheaded move that they did, or they ran that stop sign, or they ran that red light, or they almost sideswiped that car in front of them. Distracted driving has become a huge concern in the state of Michigan, and that's part of the reason some of these changes were made. Keep in mind, texting and driving hazards alone were noted as a key determinant of the expansion of these laws by sponsoring Representative Matt Kolazar, a Democrat from Plymouth, who noted distracted driving accounted for over 25% of all fatal crashes in our state. The penalties will also change as a result of this new legislation. First-time offenders may face $100 in fines and upwards of 16 hours of community service. That's just for your first offense. The second offense, that fine would jump to upwards of $250, and you may have up to 24 hours of community service ordered as a result. If you get a third offense in this manner, you may be required to take courses for driving improvement as well as incur other fines and potential penalties as well. Keep note that this is even more lenient than the original proposal for these changes that would have resulted after 3 incidences in license suspension. So you could have lost your license in the original draft of this change to the distracted driving laws. You would have lost your license, at least temporarily, after 3 offenses. Now you may have to take a driving improvement course, and you may have some fines, but you would still be able to keep your license. I haven't read through the entirety of that law, so I can't tell you what would happen after the 4th offense and onward, but I would expect that at some point repeat offenders may be at risk of losing their license temporarily or permanently for continuous distracted driving, especially if it's so protracted and so obvious that you're driving distracted that you're getting pulled over and you're getting nabbed with this sort of a penalty several times over. First things first, simply don't use your phone when you're driving. You don't need to be sending text messages. You don't necessarily need to be making phone calls while on the road. If you have hands-free ways of doing that, using your phone, using the phone connections in your car, especially if it's a newer car, that is in fact encouraged in this bill. Also, these rules do come with some exceptions. Of course, those exceptions are mostly featured for police, fire, and EMS and other public safety workers for on-the-job purposes only. You may also use your handheld devices in order to make emergency calls to 911 regarding yours or another's immediate actual emergency while you're out on the road, or to report a crime in progress, as well as a reckless driver. Those are all good reasons to pull out your phone, open your call app, and make a phone call to 911. And that's really the only permitted use of your phone in this regard. The only exception would be to make an emergency phone call while on the road. If you can do so, of course, it's always safest to pull over and not do that in process of actual driving. Sometimes, of course, things happen, circumstances are different. That's not the case. But if you can, of course, we would encourage you to pull over before making such phone calls if it is possible to do so. The key here, state leaders and law enforcement want your hands and your eyes focused on driving, not on your phone, on your social media, on your phone calls, or anything of the like. Number 4, why this is important, why these laws were passed through with such a majority and with such emphasis on reducing distracted driving of this kind and expanding what it means to be a distracted driver. Let's look at some of the stats. The numbers don't lie. Between 2016 and 2020, so presumably from the end of 2016 through the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, when many motorists left the roads as they were sheltering in place at home and quarantining from the pandemic, cell phone use while driving jumped by a staggering, dramatic 88%. Social media also was a problem on the roads, particularly with younger drivers, and continues to be a growing problem, with just under 7% of Michigan drivers in that demographic where they're considered quote-unquote younger drivers. 18.1% of that group were involved in distracted driving crashes. So 18% of distracted driving crashes involved somebody in that group, and presumably somebody that was driving distracted, using social media, making a phone call, something of that like. So it's a problem across the board, distracted driving over the last several years, having risen by nearly one full fold at 88%, but also distracted driving amongst young drivers continuing to be an issue as well, and a growing problem. It would be right in the middle of what is considered 100 of the most dangerous driving days of the year when this would go into effect. It's presumed that this could go into effect if signed soon by the governor as early as 4th of July weekend. That is part of 100 of the most dangerous driving days of the year, the period between Memorial Day and Labor Day, considered to be the 100 days of the most dangerous driving in the state of Michigan each and every year. Plenty of more information on this new legislation, supporting articles, and more from MLive and from Ben Orner, the author of this article, if you click through to the article on our local news page on civiccentertv.com. Finally, making headlines on our local news page today from the Oakland Press. Good news for taco fans coming to Royal Oak this summer, according to Mike McConnell at the Oakland Press. The Royal Oak Taco Fest will be longer, feature more food trucks, and be in a new location this 4th of July weekend. After over 60,000 patrons appeared at last year's event, organizers thought to turn the event bigger and expand it to make it more accessible and less congested for taco lovers all across the local area. John Witz, the event organizer for Taco Fest, who also organizes other big events in the Royal Oak area, such as Winter Blast and Arts Beats and Eats, said, quote, "We had to make it bigger this year so we have more food trucks and hopefully less people. That means shorter lines, shorter wait times for your food, and less crowding may be expected at this year's festival. That, plus an extra day extending the event to a total of 5 days long, will make for greater ease of experience and hopefully with less of a hassle getting around the event that includes food and other fun as well." Witz also told the Oakland Press, quote, "Our goal is to have a little less than 60,000 people this time around and have the event more spread out," and closed quote. This year's Royal Oak Taco Fest will be June 30th through Tuesday, July 4th. So Friday, June 30th through Tuesday, July 4th, featuring 50 food trucks from all across the Metro Detroit area, as well as entertainment. You can find more information in a couple of places. One, of course, go to our local news page on civiccentertv.com and scroll to the bottom of the page today. Our final article today is this one from the Oakland Press. Click through on either the headline or the picture just under it, and that will take you to this full article so you can read even more information about some of the featured food trucks that will be at Royal Oak Taco Fest. late June and into early July and that 4th of July weekend, as well as find more information on the new location and some of the other entertainment that will be featured at this big event in Royal Oak later on this warm season, the spring and the summer. Plenty of more fun all throughout Royal Oak as well. You can find more information on the event itself and mark your calendars. RoyalOakTacoFest.com is the place to go. All those headlines making news today on our local news page on CivicCenterTV.com. And you can also find more information on public health matters from the CDC, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, and the Oakland County Health Division on that page as well, right square at the top, just before all of our headlines. And stay tuned to our local news page all throughout the week as the articles from today, as well as all of our other shows this week, will remain on that website all the way through next week, Monday, on our first show of next week, so you can keep up to date on the latest, most important news stories right here in Oakland County and throughout the state of Michigan each and every day this week. We'll take a short break on the Megacast. Coming up on the other side, a lovely story out of Royal Oak where one longtime volunteer made one final gesture of goodwill to her beloved community upon her passing. Royal Oak Library Director Sandy Irwin will join us next to discuss that and more on the Megacast.
In the face of COVID-19, staying healthy is important.
And now the same is true in the face of flu.
Influenza has the power to infect millions.
But it's easy to protect yourself, your family, and your community.
The flu vaccine is safe and effective. And with COVID-19 still around,
it's essential. Together we can face flu season head on.
Visit michigan.gov/flu.
Many people are feeling overwhelmed and struggling with mental wellness these days. So be kind to your mind. Give yourself permission to breathe. Share your feelings. You are not alone. Have hope. Talk to a Stay Well counselor for free confidential help 24/7 through the COVID-19 hotline.
Ronnie started doing prescription pills at the age of 15, and by 19, he died. If your child is struggling with drug use, try not to be too proud to reach out for help. Don't be worried about what the neighbor will think or your family. Just get your child the help they need. Sometimes it's the hard road to take, but the hard road is nothing compared to living with the fact that your child is no longer with you.
There's hope and help at drugfree.org.
Watch Civic Center TV with our brand new live captions. To turn on live captions, go to CivicCenterTV.com and click Watch Live. In your web browser, click on the Options tab in the top right and find the Accessibilities tab. Then just switch on live captions to heighten your enjoyment of our local programming. Thank you so much for watching Civic Center TV.
Welcome back to the Megacast, our live daily TV, radio, and streaming show talking about all things Oakland County and the state of Michigan. I'm your host, Tyler Keefe. You can keep up to date with our show and find all of our programs on demand, as well as our full episodes and each individual segment by visiting CivicCenterTV.com/Megacast. There you'll also find links to every single one of our partnering stations with original programming in the other 23 hours of the day that they're not with us on the Megacast, including municipal meetings and other fun events and news in your local community on CivicCenterTV.com/Megacast as well. Last week, we talked about a really nice story here in our headlines segment out of Royal Oak, where a longtime volunteer left a lasting impact with one final donation to the Royal Oak Public Library upon her passing in February. It was a beautiful article from the Oakland Press, and now joining us to talk about that donation, as well as the individual behind it, is the director of the Royal Oak Public Library, Sandy Irwin, with us on the Megacast. Sandy, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you, Tyler. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, glad to have you on as we talk about Victoria Dickinson. This is the individual who on February 15th, had passed away at the age of 98. But while she was with us, and for a long time, many of those 98 years that she was with us and in the Royal Oak community, she always loved her local library and volunteered her time there. And so let's begin by talking about of Victoria's legacy of volunteerism and helping out at the Royal Oak Public Library. Just how much of an involvement did she have in the library over the course of many years?
Well, I did some research before this interview to find when she had started on the library board. So there was a lot of old binders of old meeting minutes, and found that she had started volunteering on the library board in May of 1991. For many of those years, she served as the president, and then her last meeting was in December of 2006. So that's 15 years on the board, with the majority of those as president, which is a lot of time for somebody to spend volunteering for an organization that she was clearly passionate about.
Yeah, and giving back was something that was always something that was important to her. It had been reported in this article that I first heard about this and from Mike McConnell at the Oakland Press. You mentioned to him that she had put in over 8,000 hours of service as a pharmacist at Beaumont, and that's in comparison to the probably thousands of hours too that she also put in of service at the Royal Oak Public Library. And so that idea of service was so key in Victoria Dickinson's life, and extended out to after her life as well. As you can see if you're watching at the bottom of the screen, a $50,000 donation was made from Victoria's estate at the end of her life to the Royal Oak Public Library. And while public funding and donations play a big role in this, an endowment like this to the library can certainly go a long way.
It certainly can. As you mentioned, volunteerism was just critical to the person that she was. You said 8,000 hours of volunteerism over at Beaumont. She trained thousands of volunteers. One of the things that was really important to her was education. She was always encouraging people, particularly if they were in tough circumstances, to continue their education. And she encouraged people to use the Royal Oak Public Library and use the resources that are available. It was really important to her that people knew that the resources were there for them, and that it was free to people who live in Royal Oak, and it extends out all throughout the network that we're involved in. So all of those things were really important to her, and what a fantastic gift to leave for us. And thinking about, it's $50,000. What do you do with that? We need to take a lot of thought and consideration as to what we want to do with her donation, because she had a very lasting impact on the community through all of her work, not just at Beaumont, but at the library. She headed up the original millage campaign when the city was having some rough times with finances, and they said, okay, library, see if you can get a millage passed. And she headed that up, which has given us stable funding since the early 2000s. So this gift needs to be used in a way that's going to impact people. And I'm not sure what that is yet.
Yeah, but there's already so many different ways that our local libraries do impact the community each and every day, and gets confused in our modern days because of the expansion of technology, because so many people are able to use technology and are so literate in using technology to find information that some do question the validity of libraries in our communities. But they do provide a number of services to people of all different ages all throughout the year. That includes in Royal Oak. So how important is the library, even in today's society, especially in today's society, for helping people connect to information in their local area?
It's extremely important. When you are considering information, we all think that we know what's correct and what's not correct. And we're dealing in a society that is just bombarded with misinformation. The library can help you find resources that to show whether or not something is valid. You don't want to cite a source and not know where that came from. It's really important to understand the difference between just information that's spewed at you and information that is valid. The library can help you do that. And I know you mentioned that lots of people have access to technology. Well, that's not always the case. Many people come to the library because they still need access to the internet, to software, and to assistance with all of those things. That's why libraries still have computer labs. That's why we check out laptops and hotspots so people can take them home and use technology at home, because a lot of people don't have those resources still to this day. So wading through the misinformation, finding those valid resources, and then access to technology and Wi-Fi, those are all really important things that libraries provide. Libraries also provide access to ebooks, e-audiobooks. So if you are tech savvy, you can have access to those. We have just hundreds of thousands of materials available to you for free online. So you don't have to subscribe to a service. You can use the library service and have access to so many different things. But like me, I still like a hardcover book. I don't like reading on screens, and a lot of people are trying to have time away from screens. So having access to popular materials through books is still very, very popular and really well-used resource of the public library.
And another great thing that libraries do, and not just in Royal Oak, but all throughout our communities here in Oakland County and beyond, is provide that information, to provide access to information in a number of different ways. You mentioned some of those electronic resources and resources that just simply connect people to things we take for granted, like the internet in today's world, but it's also providing access to events with guest speakers and about topics of interest in the community as well. And that requires a lot of work from people, both in the library that work there each and every day, but also volunteers. And so as we bring it back to this very generous donation from the estate of Victoria Dickinson, $50,000 donated to the Royal Oak Public Library upon her passing in February. Bring it back to volunteerism and the ways that people can get involved in their local library and help their neighbors and help visitors coming in to Royal Oak if they're interested. What sort of volunteer opportunities are available through the Royal Oak Public Library?
Oh, there's a lot of opportunities. We take volunteers from ages 14 and up, and a lot of times the teen volunteers will help with develop with craft projects and getting things ready for our story times. Adult volunteers help with different things in the collection, making sure things are shelved in order, helping us do some research on maybe we're looking for some books that have been lost and misplaced on the shelves, those types of things. One of our big volunteer organizations is the Friends of the Royal Oak Public Library. They are our fundraising arm. So they hold book sales and do other things for us to help raise money. That all comes back to the library. They help support library programs. The Friends are always looking for volunteers. So they have a bookshop that is open 3 days a week, and you can volunteer in the bookshop. You can help sort through the myriad of donations that we receive every week to see if they'll go in the bookshop, possibly on the library shelves, or even to other organizations that are in need of those books. And then we'll pay the Friends for those books. So sorting through all of those things, there's so many different things that people can do to volunteer their time. The Friends are always in need of volunteers, and it's a really great organization that supports the library. So if you're looking to volunteer, go to our website, ropl.org. Visit I Want To, and then volunteer, and you can fill out some forms, and we'll get started on your volunteer journey with the library.
As Sandy said, you can go to ropl.org and just go over I Want To and click on library or volunteerism, and you'll find plenty of more information as well as more resources from the Royal Oak Public Library. Again, ropl.org for all the information you need to know about what's going on in Royal Oak, including at the Royal Oak Public Library. Joining us on the program is the director of the Royal Oak Public Library, Sandy Irwin, on today's edition of the Megacast. Sandy, a few more minutes with you. I want to give you an opportunity to let people in Royal Oak and surrounding areas know of any fun events coming up or things they should be watching out for at the Royal Oak Public Library in the near future.
Things they should be watching out for are the summer reading program. So libraries across the nation celebrate reading over the summer. It is for a program for all ages. It's designed to start for young people so that they don't lose the information that they gained throughout their school year. It's called Summer Slide, where suddenly you're not reading, you're not doing anything, and all that stuff that you learned last year trickles away. So if you're reading, studies have shown if you read over the summer, maybe 15 minutes a day, that will help you retain that information. But the library makes that fun. So we have events, you get prizes on the 24th of June. From 10 to 1 outside in Centennial Commons, we will have a summer reading program opening day celebration where people can sign up for summer reading, do a lot of different activities and events. It'll be a lot of fun. Summer reading starts in June and ends in August. You read, you can earn prizes. And like I said, it's for people of all ages, from children all the way through adults. So we're excited that people will be able to read over the summer and join the library for a lot of different fun activities.
You can find all of the information you need to know on those activities by visiting ropl.org. Sandy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Tyler, thanks for having me. Have a wonderful day.
You as well. ropl.org is their website for more information from the library and other programs all throughout the city of Royal Oak. You can always call Royal Oak's general number and get connected with the library in whatever department you may need at 248-246-3700, 248-246-3700. And of course, we want to give a huge shout out to the family of Victoria Dickinson after this incredible donation, $50,000 bequeathed to the Royal Oak Public Library upon her passing in February. Continuing her impact, you can continue that impact as well as a volunteer with your local library. And of course, in Royal Oak, the place to go, ropl.org. We'll take a break on the Megacast. On the other side, pretty soon, Ann Arbor will be filled with art and entertainment at the annual Ann Arbor Art Fair. Joining us next is one of the artists that will be at this year's art fair. Painter Matthew Rucker joins us next on the Megacast.
Stop by West Bloomfield Town Hall June 14th and get your health in check at the 14th Annual Greater West Bloomfield Health and Wellness Fair. Over 40 businesses, organizations, and vendors take the time to showcase healthy practices, tips, and resources for the community. Young or old, there's something for everyone and everybody. 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Wednesday, June 14th, the 14th Annual Greater West Bloomfield Health and Wellness Fair. This community update from Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM.
When you have a gambling problem, you have a money problem. Don't let your gambling cause you financial hardship. If you or someone you love is struggling with gambling, we can help. Get free confidential counseling and win your life back. Learn more at michigan.gov/problemgambling.
How can you get involved with upcoming elections? West Bloomfield Township wants you to join the ranks as an election inspector. Get trained on using polling equipment, proper procedures for handling ballots, and more to keep the voting process smooth and safe. If you're interested, go to wbtownship.org for more information or call the clerk's office with the number provided on screen. This community update from Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM.
Looking for a midweek meal? Keep the bag lunch at home this summer and enjoy street food in your neighborhood with Food Truck Tuesdays. Enjoy cuisine from around Michigan outside the WB Parks and Recreation's Activity Center with a different vendor every Tuesday, like the Great Greek on May 16th. All summer, every Tuesday, Food Truck Tuesday. This community update from Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM.
1 in 4 Michigan homes has high levels of radon, a naturally occurring radioactive gas known to cause lung cancer. It doesn't matter where you live or what type of home you have. You won't even know it's there unless you test. So don't wait. Testing is cheap and easy. And if there's a problem, it's simple to fix. Visit michigan.gov/radon to learn more.
We took action. Will you?
Welcome back to the Megacast, our live daily TV, radio, and streaming show talking about all things Oakland County and the state of Michigan. I'm your host, Tyler Keefe. You can stay up to date with us each and every day on our website, civiccentertv.com/Megacast, where you'll find links to all of our partnering stations in Oakland County as well as statewide, including our co-flagship My Michigan TV with plenty of information about travel, tourism, and fun events all summer long, including the Ann Arbor Art Fair. Joining us now on the program as we get ready for the Ann Arbor Art Fair, July 20th through the 22nd, across 30 blocks of Ann Arbor from East Ann Street all the way down to Forest Street as well, is Matthew Rucker, a painter who will be at the art fair this year. Matthew, thanks for being with us today.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, glad to have you on to talk about your art. As I mentioned, you are a painter, but your painting, as with most artists, has a very unique style that you bring to the table. So tell us about your style of painting and also how you got into this form of art.
Well, my style of painting I created, it's called hyperminimalism. It's a combination of hyperrealism and minimalism. So it was kind of a strange evolution that brought me to this current series where I'm trained as a surrealist. That's, I spent my life painting like Salvador Dali, a lot of weird images on a canvas. And eventually, as time went by over a few years, fewer and fewer and fewer things were appearing on my canvases. And then one day I just got down to, there was one thing left on the canvas as I was making new paintings, and then I took away the background. And then I was like, this is kind of getting into an interesting place. And I did a show. I just experimented with a show and it sold out. And I was like, okay, maybe I'm onto something. And I developed it a bit further. It's taken off in a wonderful way. And really, it just comes down to my journey to being the change I want to see in the world. I think the world is it's loud, it's busy, it's chaotic, and my work is my counter to that. I'm doing everything I can to make the world a kinder, calmer, more joyous, beautiful place.
So how does that manifest in these paintings? Because, as you said, hyperminimalism, the style of painting that you do, combines realism, but also with minimalism. So you're trying to make things then, if I'm breaking this down correctly, trying to make things look very realistic, but also without having an overwhelming amount of detail. So how do you make that work to create these paintings that are hyperminimalistic?
Well, it's a balance of a few things. Composition, of course, is huge. As you can probably see behind me, my paintings are a large area of ambient space and then a single object on the canvas. Usually that object is an animal. Sometimes I'll do something a little bit different, but the vast majority of the time, it's just a single animal. The ones you see behind me are works in progress. They're not quite finished. So like this elephant up here, the other side, doesn't have a shadow or anything, but that's a good example there. So the minimalism, of course, comes from just the fact that there's one item on the canvas. That's it. There's one focal point. That's all. The hyperrealism comes in when you really get close. That animal, that image is going to be painted in extraordinarily high detail, like photorealistic detail. I've always believed if you're going to only paint one thing on a canvas, it's going to take a while for your eye to get to that object. You want to make it worth the journey. And
you can find more of Matthew's art, including some of the paintings you're seeing on the screen at MatthewRucker.com. Please continue, Matthew.
Oh, that's quite right. Every animal I paint is a portrait of somebody I love depicted as an animal. So it's not just, here's an animal on a canvas. It goes a lot deeper than that. It's I'm focusing, it's only positivity. I only paint positive and good things. So the whole time I'm painting that animal, I'm focusing on that one individual, an element of their personality, a memory with them, things like that. And so I'm actually like spending time, just one-on-one time with somebody that I care about when I'm working on that painting, and I'm putting all that energy into the painting. And I found that what an artist puts into work comes out of the work of the viewer. That's the hope.
Joining us on the program today is Matthew Rucker, a painter out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, who you'll see this summer, July 20th through the 22nd, at the Ann Arbor Art Fair. 3 art fairs all in one across over 30 blocks of the heart of Ann Arbor here in Lower Michigan. Matthew, on your website, again, MatthewRucker.com is the place to go to look at all of his art and to find more information. It notes down there that you are colorblind, and that's interesting too for a painter who's going into extreme detail, and a lot of times that detail involves color, especially when you're talking about the variety of different animal life that you're putting into these paintings. So how has your color blindness had an impact on your work, and how is that all, both from your ability to create these works, but also in the outcome of these different paintings?
Well, it certainly provides a bevy of challenges, but also has some benefits. So I see about 1% of color. I see about 1% of what a person with normal color vision would see. So it's rather limited. I do see color. My wife tells me that I think I see a lot more color than I actually do. But I do see blue, red, yellow in a limited quantity. And she is my color vision when it's necessary. As you can see, like elephant and the beta fish behind me, those are just, they're black and white often. I paint black and white animals, but when something does require color, then my wife helps me when I mix my palette, so I can kind of get it right and not have a green fox. It's really actually informed my art in a lot of ways, because I've had to make exceptions and changes and adjustments and ways to adapt to use my color blindness in a good way. And some of those things include, like, my backgrounds, for example. They're a very subtle gradation, a very subtle ombre from light to dark. And that's difficult to do, and I have 30 years practice doing that. But more than that, because I'm colorblind, my eyes see things differently than a person with normal color vision. Where my cones are deficient in seeing color, my rods overcompensate in seeing things like detail, gradation, texture, etc. So I can actually see the gradation much better than someone with normal color vision. So it actually assists my work in a way that someone who has normal color vision can't really do what I do, because they can't see it the way I see it. And I also use very strange and interesting colors that a lot of artists wouldn't use too.
More information on Matthew's art can be found on MatthewRucker.com. You can also learn more about the Ann Arbor Art Fair, including where Matthew and other artists will be placed at the fair, by visiting theAnnArborArtFair.com. That's theAnnArborArtFair.com. And of course, the art fair happening this July 20th through the 22nd. That's a Thursday through a Saturday. Thursday and Friday, July 20th and 21st, 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. Saturday, the 22nd, 10 a.m. until 8 p.m., featuring artists from all across the U.S. and around the Midwest and around the world as well. Ann Arbor Art Fair can be found theAnnArborArtFair.com. Joining us today is one of the artists at this year's art fair, Matthew Rucker, a painter out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, coming into town. And you talked about the motivation behind your style of painting and the art that you're creating, but tell us about your journey to turning art into a career. Where did that begin for you?
Well, that began when I was little. My grandfather was an artist. He was a sculptor, and he saw something artistic in me very, very early, and he encouraged that a lot. And luckily, I had very supportive parents. My mother is an artist as well, musician, singer, etc. And both my parents encouraged and allowed and helped me become an artist. Sent me to art school when I was, in college. And, so I'd always been doing it. And it was when I left college that I decided I wanted to turn this into a career. This is what I need to do for a living. And years and years and years of just hard work and study and trying to, do the right things and play the right games. And eventually I got there, and I've been a full-time artist for about 20 years now. And everything is wonderful.
And as a traveling artist too, as someone that goes to art shows both for my professional life and also just for my own personal appreciation of art, one of my favorite things about going to an art show is having these sort of communications with artists, learning their stories and understanding their motivations behind some of these pieces. This is one of the reasons that we do partner with the Ann Arbor Art Fair leading up to the art fair and having artists on each and every week to talk about their craft and talk about what they're bringing to Ann Arbor in late July. For an artist like you, what is the most inspiring part of traveling with your art and meeting art lovers, both in your area of the world, in the Minneapolis area, and all throughout the country as well?
Well, it's just what you said. It's just getting to have great conversations with great people. I get to meet people all over the country, have fantastic conversations. I get to learn new communities, new cities. I love finding new food, new restaurants. That's a big part of the fun of traveling. But yeah, it's just really getting to meet people all over the place and have great conversations with good people, about art, about their community. Anything goes.
And you'll be at this year's Ann Arbor Art Fair, again, July 20th through the 22nd. You can find Matthew's art there. More information on the art fair at theannarborartfair.com, and preview some of Matthew's art by visiting MatthewRucker.com for more information as well. And Matthew, have you been to the Ann Arbor Art Fair before? Have you showcased your art there before?
I have. I've been there since 2019.
So that this will then be your fourth year showing there, 2019 through this year in 2023. What about Ann Arbor makes you want to return again for another year after being there since 2019?
Well, again, it's a great community. It's a great town. It's a really fantastic art fair that's well run, well organized. It brings in a really great quality of clientele. You've got amazing people from the Ann Arbor area that come in, and then people who come in from all over the country for this show because it's so big and such a good show. A lot of people come in from all over the place, and so fantastic conversations with people from all over the place. Really good food. I love some of the restaurants out there, and it's a fun show to do and a fun town to be in.
More information on the Ann Arbor Art Fair can be found on its website, theannarborartfair.com. Friday and Saturday it'll be, but also Thursday, July 20th, 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. That's the same time period on Friday, July 21st. Saturday, July 22nd, the final day of the Ann Arbor Art Fair, 10 a.m. until 8 p.m. It features 3 different art fairs: the original Street Art Fair, the State Street Art Fair, and the Summer Art Fair across 30 blocks in Ann Arbor. More information on Matthew's art can be found at MatthewRucker.com. Matthew Rucker, a painter who will be at this year's Ann Arbor Art Fair once again, as he has been since 2019, joining us on today's edition of the Megacast. We've seen some of your art on your website at MatthewRucker.com throughout this interview already, but what are some of the different pieces that you're planning to feature at this year's Ann Arbor Art Fair?
Oh, I've got a bunch of new stuff coming this year. It's going to be fun. Several pieces I've done just for this show. I've got a new elephant, a new fox, new swan. Some of the I don't want to say standard images that I do, because there are some animals that I like to paint over and over, but there's some. I've got big cats for the first time ever. I haven't shown any of those publicly before, and I've got everything from small pieces, my smallest being like 11 by 14, all the way up to some really, really big ones. So it's going to be quite a variety. And I'm bringing a bunch of brand new prints this year, something for everybody, and including prints of the newest pieces that I have available. Some of the new paintings the originals will be up as well.
More information on all of Matthew's art can be found on MatthewRucker.com, and you can also see him at this year's Ann Arbor Art Fair, July 20th through the 22nd, on over 30 blocks of Ann Arbor. 3 different art fairs, hundreds of different kinds of art, and thousands of artists from all across Michigan, the Midwest, and around the country coming into Ann Arbor. More information and ways that you can get involved at theannarborartfair.com. And of course, again, to keep up to date with all of Matthew's art, MatthewRucker.com. Civic.com. Just a few more minutes with you, Matthew, before we'll have to wrap things up for today. Anything else you'd like us to know about your art or about your appearance at this year's Ann Arbor Art Fair?
Oh, I'm just looking forward to the show. It's like I said, it's a great show, and I think it's this one's going to be really fun with the new work I'll have and getting to see the new work of all the other artists there at the art fair. Get to eat at some of my favorite restaurants, and yeah.
You can join in on all the fun along with Matthew and thousands of other artists of all different disciplines by visiting theannarborartfair.com or joining him at this year's art fair Thursday, July 20th through Saturday, July 22nd. More information on theannarborartfair.com. Matthew, thank you so much for joining us.
Tyler, it was absolutely my pleasure. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you on as well. Thank you for coming on the show today. MatthewRucker.com is his website to preview some of his paintings and prints that you will see at this year's Ann Arbor Art Fair. And of course, theannarborartfair.com, the place to go for information on all the artists visiting from across the country this year and coming in from across the state of Michigan as well. And you can come back with us every Monday at 10:40 on the Megacast now through the end of July when this art fair will be happening beginning July 20th. We will have an artist or another representative from the Ann Arbor Art Fair on with us each and every Monday, so stick around with us each and every Monday in the morning in order to see more about what you'll see at this year's Ann Arbor Art Fair. That is going to do it for today's edition of the Megacast. Big thank you to Sandy Irwin from the Royal Oak Public Library, as well as painter Matthew Rucker, joining us all the way from Minneapolis, Minnesota, as he gets ready to make a trip out here this July to the Ann Arbor Art Fair. Of course, if you're just tuning in, you can find all of our full shows and each individual segment on demand on civiccentertv.com/megacast. Check back about 1 o'clock in the afternoons, usually about the latest. We'll get those posted to our website and on our YouTube channel. Big thank you to each of our guests for joining us. Appreciate their time and appreciate the time of our crew today. Our director at Master Control at Green Media Center in West Bloomfield, Calvin Brown, for his work each and every day, keeping us on the air and keeping us moving forward. I'm Tyler Keith. Until next time, take care of each other, and we'll see you very soon.